Four nations face-off rosters have been announced. Let's react.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Thursday, December 5th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers and on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers, no underscore there. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's edition of the show, we are going to discuss everything in relation to the four nations face-off rosters that have been announced yesterday. The rosters for Finland and Sweden were announced at 2 p.m. while Canada and the United States rosters were announced officially at 6 p.m. even though the Team Canada roster was leaked the day before. But we are still here to break that down and more. And here to do so with me is the person who was also here when we made our original predictions for the rosters. He is the host of Locked On Syracuse and South Florida native and Florida Panther fan, Jackson Holzer. And Jackson, welcome back to the show as we kind of discuss what we got right, what we got wrong, and everything in between, as well as talk about Florida Panthers representations and stats, which we'll get more into segment number 3. But welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me on. I think the first two things I want to say, number one, thank you for having me on, of course. And number two, Patrick Kane was left off, so my jaw is on the floor right now. I can't believe that Team USA actually had the courage to leave him off, but I think they made the right decision regardless.
Yeah, I remember you said something along the lines of your jaw dropping and then Hefton getting a saw and everything.
I can't believe they did it. I mean, I thought the guy could have been team captain.
Yeah, maybe.
I think they did the right thing.
But let's get right into it for the show. For like I mentioned at the top, Finland and Sweden's rosters were announced at around 2 p.m. yesterday. To also give the opportunity for the fans overseas to hear who made it and who didn't before they went to bed last night. So let's get into who is on the roster. So the roster goes as follows for Finland: Mikael Granlund, Alexander Barkov, Patrick Laine, Capo Kakko, Sebastian Aho, Teuvo Teravainen, Erik Haula, Roope Hintz, Nico Rantanen, Eetu Luostarinen, Anton Lundell, Joel Armia, and Arturi Lehkonen for the forwards. Defense is Miro Heiskanen, Asa Lindell, Nico Mikkola, Rasmus Ristolainen, Jani Hakanpää, Olli Mata, and Juuso Välimäki. And we'll get to goaltenders in just a little bit. But this is what we got wrong for what we originally had. We both had Matias Maccelli and Jesperi Kakaniemi over the guys on the roster. I did not have Yo Armia, and I also was very hesitant to put Patrick Laine due to the injury situation for him, but he's currently returned. He's actually scored a goal in his debut for the Habs. But I also had Henri Jokiharju over Jani Hakanpää. You got the defense and goaltending correct here, but you also had Jesperi Kakaniemi and Matias Maccelli here. So your thoughts on this roster?
Well, I think I got 6 of the 7D right. The only one was Henri Jokiharju not on the team? He didn't make it, right? No. So that was the one guy I didn't have Juuso Välimäki on it. So I was 6 of 7 on the D, nailed the goalies. I did kind of have Laine on there because I believe I said to you, if Laine is healthy, he's on the team.
Yep.
I just didn't know if he was going to be healthy. So I originally had it as Capo Kakko was going to be the 13th forward.
Yes.
And that Patrick Laine would swap in for him if, of course, he was healthy.
Yep.
It ends up that Kakko's on the team.
Yeah, and Kakko had a few doubts a few days ago, and then Dan Rosen also spoke about it with him about the opportunity to be on it. But congratulations to him on getting that chance, and maybe a chance to maybe up his reputation a little bit based on making the team. For goaltenders, you got all the goaltending correct there. The only one I had incorrect was Jonas Korpisalo. I had him over Kevin Lankinen, but Kevin Lankinen has been, with the goalie situation with the Vancouver Canucks, with Thatcher Demko being out and Artur Shilov's not still being young and not taking that playoff performance and going into this year, Kevin Lankinen has really truly shined and to think that he's been a journeyman for a little bit here in his career. That's why I also had Korpisalo, because he's performed well in certain stops there. But now let's move on to Team Sweden. So Sweden is Jesper Bratt, Elias Pettersson, William Nylander, Gustav Nyquist, Joel Eriksson Ek, Philip Forsberg, Elias Lindholm, Mika Zibanejad, Lucas Raymond, and Adrian Kempe, William Karlsson, Leo Carlsson, and then Victor Arvidsson. The defense, Victor Hedman, Erik Karlsson, Gustav Forsling, Rasmus Andersson, Matthias Ekholm, Rasmus Dahlin, and Jonas Brodin. And then we'll get to the goaltenders in just a little bit. I had Michael Backlund over Victor Arvidsson. Neither of us had Victor Arvidsson here. You had William Eklund over Elias Lindholm there for the forwards, but I did have Adam Larsson over and Hampus Lindholm over Rasmus Andersson and Jonas Brodin. But you batted 1,000 on the defense there, my friend. But the only one that you did not get correct was Hampus Lindholm, and you had William Eklund there. But we both did not have Victor Arvidsson there. But injuries have been an issue for Victor Arvidsson, but he's been healthy. He's been a big part of that LA Kings team for him. Now with the Edmonton Oilers now for him as maybe a team trying to shift to a more defensive heavy type of role. But your thoughts on the Team Sweden roster?
I think this kind of goes with Finland and Sweden. There are less snubs with both of these teams. Yes. Like, yeah, sure, you can make an argument for a player here or there. I wouldn't have had Elias Lindholm on the team. I just don't think he's very good. I think he's maybe the most overrated player in hockey. But the teams are not as deep as, say, Team USA and Team Canada. It's not to say that these teams can't win, because I actually think that Finland and Sweden can win this damn thing. They really can. Yeah. But there's just less to argue about. I mean, on defense, I didn't see a spot for Hampus Lindholm. I didn't. I thought there were 7D. Would I have taken Erik Karlsson? No, but Erik Karlsson was already named to the roster, so we didn't have a choice.
Yeah, we didn't have a choice.
We had to take Erik Karlsson. He was already on the team. And once Erik Karlsson was named to the team, there was no spot. Which, by the way, Karlsson should not be on this team. There's no way. You got plenty of guys here. What's his role? It's to run a power play, right?
That's basically it.
Well, you got Victor Hedman, who can run a power play, and Rasmus Dahlin, who can run a power play. I don't know what Team Sweden was thinking, saying we got to name Erik Karlsson to this team, other than essentially what it would have been with Patrick Kane for Team USA. I think Sweden made the wrong choice here, and they named him an auto qualifier months ago.
The two Norrises, three, for him. That's basically awarding him that because of what he's done in the past. But even in his Norris Trophy winning season in San Jose with 100 points, the defensive analytics were saying no, that the defensive part of his game is just
the fact that he's no longer the best offensive defenseman in the world. There are two defensemen who can run a power play on this roster better than Erik Karlsson.
Yep.
It's Victor Hedman, who might be the best in the world at doing that. And then you also got Rasmus Dahlin. So I don't see the need for Erik Karlsson. Where are you going to play him? Where? You're not putting him on the PK. That's not happening.
Nope.
You don't want him out there 5-on-5 because he's going to get toasted. He's not going to. Is he going to run the power play? I mean, maybe he could spell Rasmus Dahlin from having to play 30 minutes a night. That's it. That is the only. So you have him on the team to run the second power play?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
That's the flaw of being one of the first guys named in for this one. We did both get the goaltenders correct for this one. We batted 1,000 there with Philip Gustafsson, Jacob Markstrom, and Linus Allmark there for the goaltender. So that's one thing that we did bat 1,000 for in that one. But congratulations also to Gustav Nyquist for an older player who's also gotten into the mix. Maybe someone who doesn't get talked about much in the NHL due to maybe the state of his team at the moment.
Player on a crappy team.
Yeah, great player on a crappy team. But yeah, let's transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss maybe rosters that we got more wrong than the first 2 rosters that we named, and this is going to be an exciting conversation as we continue this this here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and get ready to take on the NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So do you get a hunch in the middle of the game? You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And I'd like to thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on the show. Here once again with Jackson Holzer, the host of Locked On Syracuse, South Florida native and Florida Panthers fan, here to discuss more on the release of the rosters for the Four Nations face-off here. And let's discuss Team Canada. So here is the roster as far as skaters as follows: Sam Reinhart, Connor McDavid, Mitch Marner, Brad Marchand, Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Brandon Hagel, Braden Point, Mark Stone, Sam Bennett, Anthony Cirelli, Travis Konechny, and then Seth Jarvis round out the forwards. The defense, Devon Tays, Cale Makar, Shea Theodore, Alex Pietrangelo, Josh Morrissey, Colton Pareko, and Travis Sanheim round out the defense. What we got wrong, we both had John Tavares here. We both had Connor Bedard. We both had Zach Hyman there. I had Matthew Barzal, but Barzal's hurt, so I can understand why they left him off. I had Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and who else did you have? You had Mackenzie Weegar on defense, and you had Chris Tanev there. And I also had Evan Bouchard and Noah Dobson there over Pareko and Sanheim there on it. But Sam Bennett made it. We neither of us had him. So, and I think of with the projection of the fourth line, when you're thinking Cirelli, Bennett, and Konechny, that's your checking line. That's a team that's like you could put as a first, even though Bennett doesn't really play penalty kill for the Panthers as much. The fact that he could take a key defensive zone draw, him and Travis Konechny or him and Anthony Cirelli, that could be great for the defensive side, and also for him, how well he can gain the zone. And also congratulations to Seth Jarvis, cut from the World Junior team in 2020, and none of those players from Team Canada made it on this team. And you're thinking about the guys like Alexis Lafreniere, Connor McMichael for them. Just to name a few. So congratulations to Seth Jarvis. Maybe I know there's Svechnikov, Aho on the Carolina Hurricanes, but congratulations to him. So on what you got right and what you got wrong as far as the skaters, what says you?
So 2 things. One, with Sam Bennett, I think they might put him with Brad Marchand.
That would be it. I'll be grabbing my popcorn.
Their plan. That has to be their plan. Come on, just do it. Just like I want to see McDavid and McKinnon on the same line, I want to see Sam Bennett and Brad Marchand on the same line. Because all these Canadians that get all pissy about the Florida Panthers and their dirty style of play and whatever, now they're going to be cheering for maybe the 2 dirtiest players in the league on the same line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. You got to put Bennett and Marchand together. I get you want to check in line with Cirelli and Konechny. That's cool, but no. You got to put Sam Bennett with Brad Marchand. Enough. Please do it. For everyone wants, we all want to see it. I almost missed my second train of thought here. I remember now. The one thing I think we really missed is who is selecting these teams.
Yes.
We missed that. Why is Colton Parayko on the team? I don't know. The GM of Canada just so happens to be the GM of the St. Louis Blues. It's hilarious because Colton Parayko is someone who the St. Louis Blues have been rumored to be trying to trade forever because they want to dump out his contract. Now, all of a sudden, he's on Team Canada. I mean, come on here. I mean, that is such a biased pick. That is such a pick that's going to try to up his trade value in the NHL. I mean, it's really a shame. He's got no business being on Team USA. There are probably 5 or 6 at minimum defensemen that are better than Colton Parayko. I mean, heck, Aaron Ekblad, who I don't think should have been on the team, is better than Colton Parayko. Period. End of story. It's ridiculous. With the forwards, like Brandon Hagel and Anthony Cirelli, there's less of a gripe, because I feel that those players are actually worthy. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day with Team Canada, when you're such a deep roster and you get so many of the best players in the world, somebody's going to be left out. That's the deal. And Brandon Hagel and Anthony, I looked up Anthony Cirelli's numbers last night because I was like, Anthony Cirelli, that's interesting. He's like a point a game.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and plays 2 ways too.
Yeah, he's 2 ways. He's a point a game. Like, I didn't see it coming at the start of the year, but when I look at it more and more, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. It does. It makes a lot of sense. And Brandon Hagel, I mean, there's familiarity with John Cooper. Nobody's going to sit here and call Brandon Hagel a slouch. I don't know if he's one of the 13 best, but he's a really good player. The one gripe I have is with Colton Parayko. I think that was totally a move by Armstrong just to say, hey, look, we can up his value in the 4 Nations, and maybe we can finally trade him.
Yeah, and the St. Louis Blues and their defense core with a whole bunch of clauses that prevent guys from being traded. I mean, you got to try to up someone's stock in order to just create more cap space in the future for them, as they're in a little bit of purgatory there. But Zach Hyman, it also goes to show recency bias for how well or how poorly someone is playing. Edmonton not off to the best start, so and we see it with the lack of scoring for Zach Hyman, and same thing with Evan Bouchard not having that.
Bouchard, I didn't have on the team originally. He just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
where it's kind of like why Erik Karlsson shouldn't be on Team Sweden, but he is. Mm-hmm. With Team Canada, what is the role of Evan Bouchard? Okay, well, he can run a power play. That's cute. That's really cute. You got Cale Makar. You got Josh Morrissey, too.
Mm-hmm. Pietrangelo
as well can run a power play. Shea Theodore can run a power play. That's so cute, Evan Bouchard, that you can run a power play, and you're one of the best in the league at doing it. But when you were talking about Team Canada, you need guys who are going to fulfill certain roles, and he doesn't fill a role that Canada needs. Is Evan Bouchard better than Colton Parayko? Absolutely. But Evan Bouchard was not the player I would take over Colton Parayko. Yeah. He's not. I would have taken maybe Chris Tanev or maybe a Mackenzie Weegar instead, because those guys, they're locked down defensively or can play 2 ways. It wasn't Evan Bouchard. Zach Hyman's a little interesting. He's not having the greatest year right now. I thought they would take him anyway to play with McDavid, but I got no problem with them leaving him off.
Yeah, and Noah Dobson, I had him there, but he's also off of power play 1 for the New York Islanders, and they're already not having a great season. So when he's taken off on his own team, it's going to be a little harder for him to get in. Goaltenders, we had the same 2 as in Binnington and Hill, but you had Stuart Skinner as the 3rd one. I had Sam Montembeault. This one was where I batted 1,000 here. So despite the record for Montreal, Sam Montembeault is keeping the Habs in games this season. So that's another thing for Sam Montembeault, and congratulations to him, former Panther, on getting in. Any thoughts there?
A third goalie is a third goalie. I mean, it makes no difference to me.
I won't play.
They're going to sit in the press box, barring something unforeseen. That's what. So it's Stuart Skinner, Sam Montembeault. I don't think it really matters.
Yeah. All right. Now to the USA. So Jack Hughes, Austin Matthews, Matthew Kachuk, Brady Kachuk, Jack Eichel, JT Miller, Jake Gensel, Dylan Larkin, Matthew Boldy, Kyle Connor, Vincent Trocheck, Brock Nelson, and then Chris Kreider round out the forwards. For the defense, Quinn Hughes, Adam Fox, Jacob Slavin, Charlie McAvoy, Zach Werenski, Brock Faber, and Noah Hannafin round out the skaters. Both of us had Tage Thompson in. He's not there. I had Jason Robertson and Brock Besser there. They're not in. You had Patrick Kane and Cole Caulfield into the mix. Neither of us had Vincent Trocheck on here for that. We'll discuss. I'll give you the floor in a little bit about that. But you also had. But I batted 1,000 on the defense. But for the defense, for you had John Carlson and youngster Jake Sanderson, young superstar from the Ottawa Senators, over Hannafin and Faber there. So we were discussing this over text, but just the Vincent Trocheck pick is just one that's like extremely head scratching for both of us.
I keep trying to rationalize it, and I like the player, obviously a former Panther. It makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
It is the dumbest pick they could have made. It makes no sense. Why do you have Vincent Trocheck on the team? Well, do they need? I'm like checking the boxes one by one. Does Team USA need center depth? Like just regular 5-on-5 center depth? Do they need it? No. They're good. They're fine down the middle with or without him. Okay? Plus, if you put in a guy like Tage Thompson, there you go. You got more center depth anyway. Tage Thompson should be on this team over Vinny Trocheck. All right?
Yes.
Period. End of story. What else? Well, Vinny Trocheck, he kills penalties. Tage Thompson does not. You are correct. Well, does Team USA on their roster have 2 penalty-killing centers? They do.
Mm-hmm.
They have Dylan Larkin, and Brock Nelson.
Matthews. And Austin Matthews.
Austin Matthews can do it too. Okay, so you don't need Vinny Trocheck to kill penalties. But wait, Jackson, wait. They took Chris Kreider. He kills penalties on the wing. What about the New York Ranger connection? Actually, you're wrong. They play for the same team, but they don't play on the same penalty kill.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing here? Oh, well, Vinny Trocheck's probably having a ridiculous season, isn't he? No. He's having a terrible year.
Half a point a game.
Is he having a good year? No. Is there a need for him 5-on-5? No. Does he play a specific role that the team desperately needs? No. I like the player. I would want him on my team if I was building a team, but to leave him off, I mean, come on now. I get Chris Kreider being on the team, and I predicted he'd be on the team because they need a penalty-killing winger. They need him. Vinny Trocheck, you got to be nuts.
Mm-hmm.
This is the dumbest pick they made. It's a shame. Defense, I think they got right. Yeah, we can sit here and nitpick Sanderson, Faber, Hannafin. Which 2 do you want? What? I don't care. Goalies was a no-brainer. It's Vinny Trocheck. That was the dumbest pick that maybe aside from Team Sweden with Erik Karlsson. That it's those 2 were the 2 dumb picks.
Yeah. And it's funny because Bill Guerin was talking about how he wanted 25 players. He was one of them who went up to the league office and getting them. And if it were 25, we'd see Tage Thompson there for Team USA. And hey, hopefully he gets his opportunity when the Olympics come around next year, or in the case of if there's an injury situation. Also,
Tage
Bill Guerin
has 13 goals.
Mm-hmm.
What is he at? 13 goals in 20 games?
Yeah, and 20 and a point per game too.
And I get it. Like a guy like Cole Caulfield didn't make the team. He might score 50. I understand it's Team USA. Guys are going to be left off. Agree or disagree. Again, you got to think about who's selecting these teams. Matt Boldy made the team. He's deserving of being on the team. Yep. Is Matt Boldy better than Tage Thompson? I'm not so sure. But who's selecting it? And Matt Boldy's a really good player. It's Vinny Trocheck over Tage Thompson. There is no justification for it. Tage Thompson's so good, he could have been on their power play 1.
I'm with you there. But I guess the youth aspect is the one that's the reason why. I can't put my finger on it, but Bill Guerin spoke about how the club is behind JT Miller and everything he's going through off the ice. So we'll monitor that based on everything off the ice for him. And also congratulations to Jake Gensel, first time in playing in any international tournament for him. So big congratulations to him there. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to talk about Florida Panthers representation, some of the numbers behind the Panthers and them being part of this Four Nations face-off. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Third and final segment here on this Thursday, December 5th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Thursday. So we spoke about all the players for the rosters. So the Panthers, well represented. Finland has 4 players, and then assistant coach Tuomo Ruutu. Sweden has Gustav Forsling along with Patrick Hornquist as an assistant general manager, and Miles Fee, video coach, which Miles Fee and John Kangemi for the Florida Panthers come so clutch in so many situations for the Panthers on video reviews.
The little hand pass in Game 6 against Boston.
Oh yeah, that was,
they saw it hit off his finger.
By his finger.
Miracle.
Thank you, Jake DeBrus, for touching the puck there. For
Bruins fans are so mad at that, but it's the right
call. But USA, Matthew Tkachuk, Bill Zito as the assistant GM, and then head equipment manager Teddy Richards. Congratulations to them on making it. And then Canada, Sam Reinhart and Sam Bennett. But the Panthers lead the league with the most players with 8, Vegas with 7, and everyone else is 5 players and below. Not a Five Below reference. Five Below is not a show sponsor, but most teammates on a roster. Panthers with 4 for Team Finland. Vegas has 4 in Team Canada. Panthers are also one of 2 teams to have a player on every roster. The only other team to have one is the Toronto Maple Leafs there. Anton Lundell is the 5th youngest player in the entire tournament. So youngest is Leo Carlson of the Anaheim Ducks. So just so much Florida Panthers representation. The Stanley Cup has definitely hit such a big boost for this franchise, and it comes at a great time. And also, I'm super excited for the new fans that are coming around for the Panthers. Not only are they getting the Panthers side of things for getting a full season if they just hopped on for the Stanley Cup run, but also getting to know having players that represent their franchise and putting it on the international stage. Wow, amazing, Jackson.
I think, well, first of all, I think Bill Zito should have been just the regular GM of Team USA, because if Bill Zito was the GM of Team USA, he ain't taking Vinny Trocheck. Let me tell you, he ain't doing that. The thing it's not just the numbers that stand out. It's the fact that you could say there's a cup bias because your team wins the cup. So obviously a lot of players are going to be selected. There's only one player that you look at of the 8 that were selected, and you can make an argument should not be on the roster. One guy. Everyone else was a no-doubter. And that one guy is Sam Bennett in a contract year, averaging basically a point a game.
Yeah, fair enough.
So that's what stands out to me. They are just they have to get the good goaltending. They maybe have the worst goaltending in the league right now, but part of the reason why they're second in the Atlantic Division is because they are just so supremely talented as a roster. You got a player representative on all 4 teams. You got 2 players on Team Canada. That's a big deal. And think about how far this franchise has come. 2010, 2014. How many players did they have represented in the Olympics? Like maybe 2, 3?
Barkov got hurt in the 2014 as well.
And Barkov was a kid. Barkov was 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't what he is now. So they used to get no international representation. Like with the Miami Heat, every time I haven't gotten to a Heat game in a while, but I know they do this. They hang a banner for players that represent Team USA in the Olympics.
And win gold.
And won gold, yes. If the Florida Panthers had that, there would be no opportunity for them to do anything like that in their franchise history. Now, if they decide to do it, no matter what, they're going to be able to hang a banner. That's, I think, also cool. Florida Panthers is guaranteed to win this thing. I guess the Toronto Maple Leafs are also guaranteed to win it too. So I guess the Maple Leafs and the Panthers are the big winners of Four Nations.
Yeah, for sure there. So we'll see. It's just crazy to see how many of the banners were even before 2020, and now they're just stacking up in the arena for them. But I also want to go with the approaches for these teams and just overall. Henrik Lundqvist spoke on the TNT panel about this is the time that you start coaching these players because you're not going to get a lot of practice time. The last game is that Saturday right before the 12th is on that Wednesday, the first game. You're starting to gather yourself, travel to Montreal, get your practices in. Maybe Team USA meets in Michigan where the USNTDP is for a practice there right before going to Montreal. Don't know the schedules yet, but you're gonna have to start making a lot of phone calls in between them. Even John Cooper spoke about how he's spoken with Doug Armstrong more recently than his own general manager, just because of the Four Nations and everything there. And John Cooper, because this is a round robin tournament, is you got to think of everything as like a game 7 at the moment because you drop that first game. I know you have 2 to make up for. After that, you're behind the 8 ball right away there. And like I said, it's just the top 2 in the table, and then it's a championship game. Like we mentioned, to my knowledge, there's no third place game here. So this is the phone calls in between are so crucial from now until game 1 on February 12th. So how are you looking at this?
It's really anyone's guess. I don't have a clear answer for you. What I will say, these are the best hockey players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They're the best coaches in the world. They're the best managers in the world. They can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They can figure it out. I get it. Team chemistry. I'm not going to sit here and say that team chemistry is an excuse for anyone. I mean, they're all dealing with the same problem. That they're not going to have a lot of practice time. You're going to have not a long sample to figure it out. But you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's everyone's dealing with the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key here. Everyone's dealing with the same thing. And these are the best players and the best coaches and the best GMs in the world. I've played in tournaments before where we maybe had 1 or 2 practices, kind of like an all-star team, because I played hockey growing up, where we maybe had 1 or 2 practices and then we just played.
Mm-hmm.
And you just figure it out.
Yeah.
It's not as hard as people are making it out to be. But it is definitely a storyline going in as to who is going to adjust better.
Yeah, and the thing is, for each player, you're obviously we spoke about with Team Canada, Point and Hagel. They play on the same team, but at the same time, you might not. This is where you have to maybe watch a little bit of tape off the ice outside of your normal practice time to see how another skates, how another player goes in transition up the zone for them. Who are the ones who like to go deep? I mean, I know Connor McDavid and Sam Bennett have been were teammates growing up. They basically grew up together, played 8 seasons of hockey in Ontario together right before, but they're not going to be playing on the same line in this tournament. That's the thing for them. So that's also the balance that each player has to have with playing with new guys. And hey, there's world juniors and everything, even for some of the veteran guys who maybe played with 1 or 2 guys before, but you have a big age range between all of these players. I mean, we mentioned Leo Carlson at 19, Sidney Crosby in his late 30s. So it's going to be really interesting who's going to feed off each other and all. But any final thoughts here before we sign off for the day? As the Florida Panthers will be playing a game tonight in Philadelphia. We'll recap it tomorrow. But any final thoughts here, Jackson?
I just hope the Panthers can get on a run before this thing. How about that?
Yep.
Let's just do that.
Yep, and hey, I know the players that won't necessarily get a rest in between February 12th and February 20th when this tournament goes on. But hey, the key players who are going to get the rest, the goaltenders. So that is the great thing about this. For even though the skaters are going to be in this tournament for
all
a week
of our players are in their prime. Like all the players they're in their prime. Like this is when they can handle the stress. They're not 34 years old playing all these games. They're in their mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
This is the time where You can play up until June, the last game of the season. Then you can have a whole regular season. Then you can have a stop, but you're not going to have a break playing Four Nations. And then you can continue, hopefully, into a deep playoff run that leads to a Stanley Cup, because they're in their primes now. When they're 34, 35 years old, this is not going to be possible. It's right now.
No doubt. But anyways, Jackson, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Sure. Well, my Twitter handle is right below me, but in case you're listening, it's at JacksonH_52. You can also follow the team that I follow, which is the Syracuse Orange. We cover a lot of football and basketball, especially football right now with the transfer portal and signing day. On Twitter, it's at LO_Syracuse. And if you're just searching it up, all you got to do is search up Locked On Syracuse, and you can find all my content there.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we'll likely have you back here sometime around February for the Four Nations. So we can maybe bet on that. But anyways, man, thank you so much, and see you again very soon.
Take care, Armando. Appreciate you having me on.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jackson Holzer, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.